Welcome to another fabulous episode of the Mouthwash Talk Show, a minty fresh take on politics. And I have a very special guest in here tonight with me, as well as our regular co-hosts, Lucy and Jacob. But first, we're going to start this out with Thomas Breedlove, or TA Breedlove, the Indianapolis Skateboard Journalist, because he is our guy that generally does the peeps on the streets. So I thought it'd be nice to have him on here and feature him and get you to like his pages and all that stuff, because he's out there asking questions on the streets for us so we can get our show started. Excuse me, Thomas, welcome to the show. Why don't you tell the folks a little bit about your project of what you're doing in Indianapolis as the Indianapolis Skateboard Journalist?
You know, I just started riding around after I got over cancer, and I was coming back from some health issues and started riding my skateboard again. And I noticed how fast I could get around the city, and I was seeing lots of things going on the streets downtown. And I just started videoing. My first video was over at IUPUI when the Westboro Baptists came and held up their crazy signs, and there was a counter protest. And I thought, there's something to this. Filming these little videos. I went back home and put my video together on the little Microsoft program, Movie Maker, that they had at the time. And that's how that all started. I've been videoing ever since.
So what made you think about doing that? You just wanted to have it documented, or you just thought, hey, this is a craze, this YouTube thing, or?
I wasn't sure. I just thought there was something to what happened that day at IUPUI between the Westboro Baptist and talking to a guy named Muhammad from Qatar, who was more rational than everybody was there about the religion and religious freedom and free speech. And so there was just something to letting everyone talk and say what they wanted to say, and coming across someone like him who seemed to make a lot of sense. And that's really been my approach, is to let people talk, be themselves, and not edit them to make them look otherwise, or try to, I'm not pushing an agenda other than just documenting things that I see. So, and there's just some things instinctively to me that are worth seeing for other people to see. So I don't know. Some people say what I do is not a great thing, that's fine. But that's what I'm led to do. That's my calling right now on the side from all the other things that I do.
Yeah. So what do you do for real work? I know we joke around about, hey, my side job it gets in the way of doing our shows and whatnot. But what is your?
It's litigation support. I've been doing that for 18 years with a business partner. We've got a business and we've got 6 employees that work for us. And we do discovery and record retrieval. We're like a Kinko's that caters to attorneys and insurance companies. So a lot of paperwork, and now it's a lot of digital, paperwork, so to speak.
Yeah. And so out on the streets, give us what was the most confrontational person have you run into? Have you had somebody like this does not want to be filmed and got in your face?
I've never had anything get too out of hand, because I'm quick to not film people unless there's something crazy going on, that don't want to be filmed. I have found that most people are okay with my filming. I have had a handful of people tell me not to film them. And if I feel like that if it's just kind of them and there's nothing really else going on, then I'm not going to just sit there and point the camera at somebody that doesn't want to be filmed, that makes it clear they don't want to be filmed. Now, if they're like busted into the Capitol building or something like that, I probably might film them even if they tell me not to. But on the whole, I try not to harass people, and just most people a lot of people in my videos now, they've been in a lot of videos, so most people are welcoming to me filming out there.
Yeah, I've had similar experience, and we work a lot with homeless folks, and you want to be careful with their identity and this type of thing. So yeah, you sort of have a knack for that. Now, we were talking about how long you were going to do this and how long you have been doing this, and you're probably about halfway through your goal.
Not quite, but almost there,
I never really asked you why you were just picking 10 years as your end date, just because you thought that was.
For me, like, so I'm 7 years out from cancer, and I don't know. You just start thinking in terms of, wow, 10 years more than what I could have lived, back then when I was sick. At the time that I was sick, my son was about to be born. So I found out, Carmen told me she was pregnant. Then I found out, that I had cancer the very next week. And so it was this kind of traumatic. That's part of what the videos are about. I had been videoing my son a lot when we were skateboarding. He sat on my skateboard one day, and I thought, and I got him some pads, and we rode around together, and I started filming us riding around together. And then all these videos, I kept thinking about, his mother got sick too. So his mom also had cancer, and she had it way worse than I did. And I just wasn't for sure, if we died or something happened. I felt like I was making these videos as a way to show him what life was like, what my life was like, so he could know me if I passed.
Yeah, and it's and I want to promote your YouTube channel is what you have there, and on the scroll down below. And I did post into the chats or into the comment here. Let's see what it says here. Oh, you see, Lisa loves the term filmed, but it's really cool that you're documenting this. And, talk about after the riots, because I know you were downtown, filming that.
Well, that's when we met for the first time in person. And, you met me standing outside my office building, looking around, just thinking I was kind of shocked at what was going on down there. We're in a grounds. I'm at 120 East Market Street. It's the ground zero for what happened down there. And, the person was killed right at the bank where our bank is, where our business bank is there now, National Bank of Indianapolis, right on the corner there. So Indianapolis, a couple of years ago, it really started to go downhill, it seemed like, in terms of people ODing right outside your office door when you walked outside. We had 3 in one day right there. They were all going down the alley. I call it Hepatitis Alley, because that's, you don't know what you're going to see or find back there. It was a bathroom / place to shoot up, among other things. And they've got, that alley's blocked off right now. There's still, you see a lot of new construction down there. But I'm not sure where things are going to go down the road here. Everything got cleaned up for the basketball tournament. And now we're kind of in a limbo. I'm not quite sure, is there going to be another surge, or is things going to get back to normal? What's going to happen this summer? Apparently there's not going to be any protests tonight, from what I can tell in Indy.
Yeah. And I don't know how all that works, but I mean, if he would have been acquitted, maybe, I don't know. I mean, obviously it's snowing here in April, so I don't know.
The snow will put a damper on anybody's protest, no matter what the politics involved. It doesn't matter what the cause. The snow will lessen the spirit of a group in no time.
Yeah, I thought I was going to have to turn the heat on here in the studio. It was like 70 yesterday, and it's like 40 and snowing. So, but yeah, and it just seems like hopefully everybody can relax a little bit now and go on with their thing. And then we have the COVID. Have you noticed that the streets are getting a little more active as maybe some of the COVID eases some? Or
I think so. Yeah, it seems like it has. I mean, there's been little spots of it throughout the last few months, and it was very active in the summertime. It was, you go back and look at my videos from September and October, it's almost like, it appears like almost nothing's happening, on the streets anyway.
Yeah, it just seems like we just keep getting kidney punched for the city, and I know we rely on a lot of tourists and a lot of folks coming downtown, and it just doesn't seem like it's coming back anytime soon. So, I just want to say I appreciate and I know our audience and viewers appreciate the Peeps on the Street segment, and I did a little special segment for you here that I'm going to play, and then I want to see what you got to say about my Peeps on the Streets here. Did that right here in Marshville. So Here you go. And I'm here in Mars Hill at the Friendly Market, and we have the Peeps on the Streets question for this week. And it's just two simple questions. Do you know who the Indianapolis Skateboard Journalist is?
No.
How about Thomas Breedlove?
No.
Do you know who Thomas Breedlove is?
No, I do not.
How about the Skateboard Journalist?
No, I do not.
Do you know the Indianapolis Skateboard Journalist?
No, not really. Not
Okay.
skateboard.
Okay, how about Thomas Breedlove? Do you know that guy?
I've heard the name.
Do you know who the Indianapolis Skateboard Journalist is?
Never heard of him.
Okay, how about Thomas Breedlove?
I don't know who that
Do
is.
you know who the Indianapolis Skateboard Journalist is?
No.
All right, how about Thomas Breedlove?
Nope.
Do you know who the Indianapolis Skateboard Journalist is?
I do not.
How about Thomas Breedlove?
The name sounds familiar, but no.
Do you know who the Indianapolis Skateboard Journalist is?
Hell no.
Do you know Thomas Breedlove?
No, I'm not into sports.
Okay, not into sports. Did you hear that, Thomas? Well, that's a wrap for Peeps on the Streets. And hey, Thomas, it looks like you're almost famous. so
Nice.
yeah, I thought
They feel like they know me, but not quite.
Well, and I wanted to do this because we want to get people subscribed to your channel so we can get you famous, and all this 10 years of work that you've done, they need to be able to see it. So that's the beauty about YouTube. You can go back and watch them. There we go. That's a shameless plug. I don't feel bad about doing that video now, but at least a couple of those people might have heard your name. But yeah, I had fun with that. But now I'm going to go ahead and bring on our co-hosts, and they may have a couple of questions for you. Jacob lives up north, and Lucy lives down south, but they might have some. So let's bring them on here, and let me get them in the right order. Oh, look at that!
I look like Emperor Palpatine. This is crazy. I don't know what I'm doing with my lighting here.
You look like an android.
I look like, like the Borg. I have 10 children, so I've got 1 of 10 of 2 of 10 of 10 of 10. So,
but you're on.
Yeah.
You got 10 kids. So you're going to be driving one of them somewhere all the time. So
I'm just hiding in my closet, man. I just can't come out of the closet.
Well, the door's closed anyway. That's nice.
Yeah, exactly.
So we were able to have a good little discussion there before we got you on here. So we got Thomas on here, and I don't think you've officially met him. You've seen his work with the Peeps on the Streets. And
I'm a big fan of your work, man. Your athleticism is amazing.
Thanks.
And you will really like his Peeps on the Street person that we have tonight, because it's, I think he leans libertarian in some
what my
way.
skateboard style is? I just always look like I'm about to fall down, but I never do.
That's awesome. That's like Mr. Bean.
Graceful. So you guys have any questions for Thomas? As far as maybe you could ask him a windmill question to get warmed up.
Let's
I
get
didn't know I
things
was going to have
spinning.
to answer the questions about the windmills.
Yeah, you just ask them, right? That's what's good about being the host. I don't have to render my opinion. I let the other two take the heat for it. I'm just like, I don't know. I'm like Sergeant Schmitz. I know nothing. Well, I'm going to go ahead and play Thomas's Peeps on the Street, which is actually a peep on the street, but I think it's a really good one. And Thomas, thank you. And hey, all you viewers out there, hey, let's subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Go to the Indianapolis Skateboard Journalist, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell so you can see his work, and then we'll continue to enjoy the Peeps on the Street questioning that he does. So let's go ahead and enjoy this 3 minutes of beautiful the Indianapolis Skateboard Journalist work.
So happy 420.
Happy 420
Here
to
with
you.
Bill Levin. I'm just asking him, what do you think about solar panels and windmills in Indiana?
I'm all for solar panels and windmills. I'm also for nuclear power because it's clean and it's safe. So that'll mess everybody up.
Do you think there's any downsides to solar or wind?
The particular wind blades they use I have severe questions about, and how they regulate and run it. Because the owners of the grid, if your fan is going too fast, they'll slow it down. They have control over the speeds and turning on and off your fans. If they didn't let it flow free all the time and get all the energy you need, it would be one thing. But to regulate the speed of the fans, you're screwing the farmer.
Do you think maybe they don't always have the best interest in mind? Some of these companies,
of course they don't have the best interest in mind. They're greedy bastards, and they're interested in money and greed and stock. You know, they don't give a shit about the people. I mean, they wouldn't build 200, 300-foot towers that you can't dispose of properly when they break. And a lot of them are very poorly made. And when they do break, it's a toxic hazard. You know, what do you do with that stuff? You can't recycle it.
That's kind of what some people say too about some of the battery components of the solar power, you know, and the cells themselves, which expire at some point. Hopefully that technology will get better. It's getting better.
We should have free energy. Okay, we should go back to Tesla and have free energy. Since we're not going to have free energy, and everybody's a greedy bastard and want their stocks to go up every year, all of our utilities will go up per annum religiously forever and ever, as long as we are on a greed-based society. Gotta make money, gotta make money, gotta make money. And the corporations will fuck you in a second. Doesn't matter which corporation. You are not important. The corporation is important, and the stock going up is important. That's what's important.
Unfortunately, they can't tie the importance of that to the infrastructure and maintenance of their own infrastructure and their own company to keep that going.
You are exactly correct. We are creating a boondoggle society where greed is the cornerstone, and if it fails, screw it, dump it in the ocean. You know, we have plastic islands out there, and every day we go out and we buy gallons of milk in plastic containers. How fucked up is that?
No, I hear you. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
I love you. I hope you have a beautiful day. I love everybody out there. Everybody out there, please tell your friends and family you love them. Tell strangers you love them and watch them smile. It'll be a better life if you do. I love you all. Bye-bye.
Have a great rest of your 420.
Love you all.
There we go. I'm skipping out here a little bit. Maybe this giant snowstorm is wreaking havoc on me. But yeah, so there you got Bill Levin is our Peeps on the Street. He's been on the show before, so it's just like an all-star cast this evening. So our topic is going to be this bill, Senate Bill 1381, I believe. And I have a little clip here of Senator Messimer, who went on the House floor when they didn't have the votes to get this passed. So instead of saying pass, he had to get up and give a little speech. So I have the audio here that I'm going to play, and then we're going to come back, and I'm going to find out what Lucy and Jacob have to say about this and see if they can make heads or tails out of this bill. So what we're about to see or to listen to is an actual reading in the Senate floor. So, you know, Suzanne Crouch, the lieutenant governor, will call the bill for the reading to the clerk. The clerk will read it real fast, like blah, 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 and then it'll go. So that little spot at the front, if you've never been down to the legislature, that's how they read the bill, because they assume everybody's read it. So they're not going to read the whole text. They're just going to read part of it and just a little bit. So that'll be that first excerpt, and then listen to this fine speech that Senator Messimer gives. So here we go.
House Bill 1381, Senator Messimer.
Senator Messimer calls House Bill 1381. Clerk will read.
Bill Friday, make oaths and utilities.
The chair recognizes Senator Messimer to present the bill.
Thank you, Madam President and members of the Senate. House Bill 1381 is the attempt to try to get some uniform sighting standards adopted in the state. It was worked to a complete different direction from when we brought it over from the House to being as local control as it could possibly be. Working through this bill was like working with a hostage negotiation with a schizophrenic captor on the other side, and everything that was asked to be changed in the bill to make it local control was done. And it's like having a hostage crisis negotiation going along. You give the captor everything they want, and then they shoot the person at the end of the ordeal anyway. I appreciate everybody who's supported me on the bill. I appreciate the chairman that helped keep the bill moving. This bill, as everybody in our caucus heard this morning, has wide statewide support. There's nothing to be afraid of. There's relationships with commissioners that people just felt like they couldn't break. I appreciate all the effort from the renewable folks that they put into trying to get this thing into a good spot. It's a good piece of legislation. Everybody who's opposed to the bill, who says wait and bring something back better next year, I challenge any one of you to do it, and I doubt that it'll happen. So with that, I withdraw the call.
Okay, I think we're freezing up a little bit there again. Senator Messmer didn't seem too awful pleased about his bill getting killed off there, or not even getting enough for a vote. And I don't know what ended up getting it done. So let's go ahead and start with Lucy on this one. And I read the bill. Maybe you could explain it to me.
The bill was a whole bunch of word salad. So I would invite anybody to go look at it. It really just looks like a long run-on sentence from a third grader. And the thing that is most disturbing about this was listening to his litany there, that we're in a hostage negotiation with a schizophrenic on the other side. You know, they did everything they could to give them what they wanted with local control. But, you know, they just shoot the person at the end after they give them everything. You know what I felt like? I felt like I was being gaslighted. You know, here we have something that really affects property values. I've been a mortgage broker since 1996, and I attempted to do a refinance for a lady that lives up in Elwood. Prior to the big fans coming into their area, her house was worth over $250,000. The appraisal afterwards was $135,000, and she owed $225 because the previous refinance, of course, was based on about 90% of the previous appraisal of $250. So here is this lady who now cannot take advantage of a lower interest rate and lower her payment, as most Americans would want to do, because the windmills were actually driving her property values down. To make matters worse, she lost the quiet enjoyment of her home because she has a seizure disorder. And I don't know if you guys have ever been out and seen the red flashing lights that are on the windmills, as well as the windmill itself going around, and you get that zoom, zoom. So while you're in her house, you feel, gosh, you feel this like low level of anxiety because of the frequency, the zoom, zoom. And then she had to close all of her windows. She had blackout curtains on every window. So being in this poor woman's home at 2:00 in the afternoon was really like being in a cave. And so she became a prisoner in her own home. Why? You tell me. So no, I'm not a fan. I think that the bill is absolutely horrid. And I think it's clear that Messmer and all the other people that were working with those really good renewable energy folks, they got such effort from them. Well, of course they did, because they are getting millions and billions of dollars for this boondoggle. And I am sick and tired of being a boondoggle state. We need to stand up to that sort of thing. What do you think, Jacob?
I tend to agree with you, Lucy, on most of your points there with that. I would say, you know, a lot of times we talk about, you know, Washington, D.C. taking over too much of our lives and how Washington, D.C. needs to send stuff more back to the states and local governments. Well, in this case, you know, I'd say this is Indianapolis taking over too much of our lives. And in reality, we should be sending this back to local counties and townships and local municipalities and make decisions about this. As Adam said in the comments here, you know, the premise of this bill is they were trying to, you know, force counties to adopt these wind and solar projects. And I know just from a couple counties south of me, like in Newton County, Benton County, Tippecanoe County, I know people from those areas, and a lot of people are not happy with the windmills going up there.
Yeah.
I think some people don't mind it. There are people out there that don't, but I think in reality, the best way to find a solution to this issue is number one is to get Indianapolis out of it, because Indianapolis can't speak for the rest of the state. I mean, even though we send our representatives down there, I mean, you know, they put up crappy bills all the time that really don't represent certain parts of the state better than other parts of the state. So I think, first of all, it should be a local thing. And I think just generally when it comes to issues like, alternative energy, I think big government usually makes it a lot worse than they do make it better. I think this is much better left to the private sector, first of all, and the big government shouldn't be coming in here and just doing the dirty work for corporations, just coming in here and just cutting deals to allow them to get into a certain market, whereas they might not have otherwise been able to. I'm not, just for the record, I'm not opposed to wind and solar energy if we can make that, efficient and inexpensive and convenient for people. But so far, I'm not really seeing how this bill would do that. And a lot of other, similar proposals have been proposed on the federal level or in other states as well. I think wind and solar energy and other forms of alternative energy, clean energy, are just kind of at their beginning stages, and they need a little bit more time to kind of develop before they really become a viable option.
Well, and I think that, you made a point there about representatives coming down to Indianapolis to make a law, but how about District 97, where I'm at? My House of Representative guy was a co-sponsor. I don't know if anybody knows how many windmills are in Indianapolis. Does anybody want to make a guess? So I don't.
Maybe -1.
Yes, I want you to send a message to my representative. I want sidewalks in Mars Hill. Okay. Right. I don't care about your stinking windmills. Let's get them sidewalks here in Mars Hill. But anyway, back to the subject. So what happens when one of these things breaks down? I mean, we heard Bill Levin say something about the environmental issue. And by the way, yes, Lucy, it must be a libertarian thing to say boondoggle. Is that in your libertarian constitution?
I think a lot of us are just really searching for words that don't start with F. And so that's a really good one. I'm looking to expand my vocabulary, and $1 billion boondoggle has, such an alliteration to it. What I'm hearing that when you take the locus of control away from the people that it actually affects, you have disastrous consequences. And I'll use our local water as an example. So the community in which I live, we get our water from Patoka Lake. Everyone that is on the water board for our tiny area actually lives and consumes the water. So when we moved down here, we had to buy in the co-op. We went to the meetings, and what I was so impressed with is the fact that although Indianapolis, the state, had offered us money, it had been continually turned down. So if we had just simply, wanted to lose about $20 a month per household per bill, then all of the testing and things would have gone to Indianapolis. They would have funded this, but then we would have lost the local control. And now people who are not drinking the water that we're drinking would then be making decisions about the quality of the water that we were drinking. And so every single time this has come to a vote, I've been very proud of our local board and we that vote them in, because they continually rebuff the advances of Indianapolis. There are hidden consequences to this sort of thing. And what you've really got to look at is what are the hidden objectives of the people that are bringing this to us. And as Adam Harvey pointed out before, these companies are sneaking in. They're preemptively trying to go to the farmers and work out special deals so that they'll network amongst themselves. And now you're pitting one member of the community against another because one has a hidden agenda. They're looking for those big contracts to go through so that they can get some sort of, option money. So the problem, once again, and we'll use the term boondoggle, is that in these types of boondoggles, there are hidden incentives. There's a lack of transparency. There's no local control for the people for whom it is actually affecting. And then, we get into the environmental cost and the concept of trespass. So I'll go ahead and let Jacob comment.
Well, and a perfect example, though, too, is why we need more local control is like, a lot of the windmills that we see, an hour south of me when I drive south on 65, a lot of that is to power the city of Lafayette. And it takes so many of them to power this one particular city. So once again, it draws back to my point about efficiency, that, to power this entire city, you need so much farmland, basically, to use a lack of a better term, polluted with this array of windmills all over the place, that really a lot of residents might not like, and that they might think kind of, makes their area much less beautiful, because they, in my opinion, they are kind of an eyesore in a lot of respects. And the thing about it is like, it's the efficiency aspect. So you have to put all these things up, and maybe they'll power the entire city of Lafayette, or maybe just a quarter of the city of Lafayette, or half of it. I just don't think that we need to be investing so much money in something right now that has not been proven to be efficient and cost effective. Sure, maybe it's cleaner for the environment. I'm all for, cleaner for the environment. I'm a former Boy Scout, so I like the great outdoors. I don't like to see people, dumping stuff in the water or something like that. But we got to also think about economic efficiency, and I just don't see that with these with the windmills yet. And another point that Adam made is about with Texas. And we saw a lot of the power outages that happened in Texas about 2 months ago, largely because of over-reliance on solar and wind energy in certain areas that were just inefficient. Like the windmills were not winterized, the solar panels were also not winterized. And I'm not saying we'd have that same problem in Indiana, because obviously we think a lot more about things like inclement weather than they do in a place like Texas that rarely gets that. But the point still stands that we can't place all of our reliance in these new technologies yet. They have a very short track record. They have a lot of potential hiccups. And if we really start doing them, we need to work on efficiency and phasing them in slowly over time if people in the local municipalities want it, not if some big corporation goes to the Indiana state legislature and says, hey, we're going to lobby you to make a bill where we can just force windmills and solar panels on a community that might not want them. Let's explore a lot of different options. Right now, yes, I understand that oil and natural gas is dirty and that it'd be nice to kind of get rid of that, but let's stick with what works right now. Let's start phasing these things in, phase in some wind, phase in some solar, maybe even some nuclear. Like Bill Levin was saying, that's actually had a longer track record than solar and wind, but yet people always kind of poo-poo that idea.
Yeah, and so, and Bill also touched on, he touched on a lot of good points about this. So what do we do with these things when they're done? I mean, I remember seeing the first fin on the back of a semi thinking, what in the world is that gigantic thing? Because when they're up in the air, they don't look that big. But when they're down like in your rearview mirror, it's like, oh my gosh, this thing's a giant fiberglass environmental disaster. And I've seen them on fire. And another question, there's two questions here. What do we do with them when they're no good? And the other one is, I remember going up to Lafayette and the wind was blowing like 30 miles an hour and these windmills were stopped. Mm-hmm. And then I realized that why are these stopped? Well, because the price of energy was going too low for the other kind of energy, and they had to stop them because they weren't making any money. So, I'll tell you, Bill was spot on with a lot of what he was talking about and the greed and free energy and all those. And, so talk about that a little bit. Let's go with Jacob first on this one, and then we'll go with Lucy.
In terms of what what to do when these things are useless, like when we have to replace them, or about the nuclear, what point would you like me to go on?
Let's go with the first one.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, once again, I think that comes back to the whole track record issue. I mean, these windmills have only been up for really a handful of years. I mean, all of us can remember when these windmills did not exist, period. So it really kind of remains to be seen. What are we going to do when these windmills need massive repairs and we need to either dispose of certain parts or even put a whole new windmill up? It's like, what kind of return on investment are we getting? So we're getting a certain amount of energy, going to power a very specific, area, population center, which usually, by the way, is not that large. Like I said, most of the time these windmills they have to have tons of them just to power a medium-sized city like Lafayette. And so it's like, what kind of return on investment are we getting? We're getting a very relatively small population center getting powered by these things. Then how much money is it going to be to fix these things, to keep maintenance on them? And how much is it going to be just simply, like you said, for these companies to turn a profit to make it worthwhile to maintain them and to keep them going? There's just not enough of a track record with this. We need to have diversification. And as Denise is saying here in the comments, a lot of times these wind and solar energies don't exist without some sort of fossil fuels or nuclear backing them up. And to kind of elaborate on what that means, like, how do you think they're making the parts for these windmills? Or are we making it a factory that's, reliant on oil or coal or natural gas or nuclear or whatever? So it's just, we haven't gotten to the point where these things can make up a large percentage of our energy source. So why dump all this money into repairing them and building new ones and attaining land for it, and then, pushing bills through the Indiana state legislature to make it even easier to do that?
Well, one of the things you brought up there was, that I wanted to interject before Lucy goes. when we had the back recyclables, and everybody was turning in cardboard. Well, it got to the point where cardboard was worth like $20 a ton. Well, they had so much of it that you had to pay to get rid of it. So the recycling is a great idea, but if we're not set up to bring that stuff in, which is similar to this, if we're not set up for the right battery storage or everything, I think a lot of things don't get thought of, and we just go full force ahead because it's a tax credit. It sounds good. The voters want it. So Lucy, get that second question, but I can't remember what is.
Oh gosh, well, it doesn't matter because I'm going to go off on a tangent anyway and fulfill my own agenda as any good politician would. Jacob said something that really touched my heart, because at my heart I'm an economist, Austrian, of course, not Keynesian. And for people that don't know the difference, you need to go watch some videos at econstories.tv. That'll tell you exactly what it is. When we think about economic efficiency, we need to be thinking more long-term and not short-term. So short-term thinking is the Carmel boondoggles and the TIF districts and just the absolute mess that's up in Hamilton County as a result of that, where they're literally handing the bill to their grandchildren for the things that they're building now. And we're handing the environmental bill to the grandkids on a number of levels. We're doing it by taking resources that should be rightly used for something that is truly sustainable, not the clean energy buzzwords that they're using. We need to take back our vocabulary, because words have meaning, and they're attempting to spin this whole idea of clean energy that's really not clean. I mean, let's face it, everything the government does is the opposite. The Patriot Bill is not patriotic. The crime bill does not jail criminals. It makes criminals out of everyone. And so, first of all, let's take back and find out, what does clean energy really mean? And how do we accomplish the energy consumption needs of our society without damaging the environment at the same time? I think it was David Brower who said we don't inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. I may have the attribution wrong. Denise Spooner, you are absolutely correct. You've been putting some fire in the comments, as has Adam. And the answer is that all of this is driven by lobbying at the highest level. And those incentives are created by where the tax credits flow. I was just listening literally as I'm gardening. I've got my earbuds in. I'm listening to Robert Kiyosaki interview his property acquisitions coordinator, his wife, and his accountant. And what they all agreed on is that as they have cash come in, they've got to protect themselves from paying taxes. And so Kiyosaki was saying, he doesn't even care whether it's oil and gas or whether these carbon credits. He's simply looking to the tax code to see where the government is incentivizing him to not pay taxes. That's a huge part of what's wrong with this, is because there is the opportunity for fraud, there's the opportunity to create incentives that actually misalign with the interests of individuals. I want my children to grow up in a world that is clean, and if we don't stop the misuse of the raw natural resources that are going on right now, these natural resources are not going to be available for the grandkids later.
Well, and to expound upon Lucy's point, if anybody thinks there's not a lot of graft involved in these big government, alternative energy programs, just type in Solyndra on your Google and just look up all that happened during the Obama administration. And once again, though, but to kind of answer one of your points, Lucy, like you're saying that they're not thinking about economics in the long term. Well, what do you expect from our government? They don't look at anything in the long term. This is the same government that just went and printed a third of all US dollars in circulation in 1 year. So, people need to really educate themselves more about the economics of many different policies, not just alternative energy, but stimulus, the gold standard, the Federal Reserve, all that kind of stuff. People need to get, a better understanding of economics, not just fall for platitudes. The politicians throw at you saying, oh, we're going to have, clean air and clean water, not dirty air and dirty water like the other side wants. That side, they just want to kill the environment and we want to save the environment. Don't be so shallow, everybody. Really do your own research. Know the different kind of economic systems that are out there. And once again, always look in the long term. That's how people should be looking at finances just generally. Like when you're out there working, and you get you're making 50 grand a year or something. What are you going to do with that 50 grand? You're just going to go spend it all on, going to Disney World every week? Or are you going to save some for retirement? Because you're going to save some for retirement most of the time if you're smart financially, because you're looking in the long term. So we got to look at our government finances the same way. We got to not just blow everything today and print and give more graft to the corporations. Rather, we need to conserve that money and not just put, this mountain of debt on our children. And once again, you're falling for the platitudes of these politicians and what they're telling you. You're not really benefiting from it. We're not seeing a green energy revolution in this country. Instead, you're just seeing a bunch of corporations go and make a lot more money from your tax dollars.
My wife says we're turning it into a good show. Well, one of the things I want to interject here real quick is, we talk about, we sure don't spend money like we're a $30 trillion in debt country. But, we just had Bernie Madoff pass away. And, he used the 1031 exchange, which is where you buy real estate by the millions and you put it in this account and you're not taxed on it as long as you buy another piece of real estate in a certain amount of time. Well, that allowed Bernie Madoff to pick his little pieces out and sort of pay you with your own money. And I mean, we're talking millions. And I actually have a good friend that had the same kind of boss on a smaller scale, but it was still millions and millions of dollars that were taken advantage of. So why is our government so bad at managing these things?
Well, the incentives aren't there. These are not private individuals who are trying to, balance the corporate checkbook. And corporations as persons is another whole thing that we could get into. But I want to speak back to what Jacob was saying about, the incentives and where they lie, because at the highest level, people that okay, I'm going to say it, conspiracy theory, don't have my tinfoil hat on. I'm not sitting in a Faraday cage. Oh, you got yours. Okay, here you go. I'm going to say it. Bill Gates. Okay, so let me tell you what's going on. Bill Gates owns more farmland than any other private owner in the United States. Bill Gates just bought into, I don't know if he actually owns the whole thing or if he just became a majority stakeholder in the largest waste management company. Why is that? You're talking about the recyclables, and this is what brought it up to my mind. If he owns the waste stream, then he owns the natural resources that can be recycled, and it puts him in charge of the profit stream that comes. Remember how, they've been trying since we were little kids to get us to the plastics and the number 2s and the number 7s and the cardboard versus the paper. That was all training to make sure that it's more profitable for him in the end. And where is all this going? Well, it's all going for the purpose, allegedly, of creating, again, this clean energy society. But at every level, it takes away individual choice, it takes away individual control and autonomy. So when I think about what does this really mean from my perspective as a libertarian, is I look at it from the concept of trespassing. So the EPA actually enshrines the amount of pollution that you are allowed to create or commit. When I worked at the Belmont wastewater treatment plant back in 1991, I took over Sandy Allen, the tallest woman in the world, right? You might remember her from Shelbyville. Yeah, I took over her job temporarily when she was out sick. And I swear her chair, I felt like Lily Tomlin sitting in her chair. But what was horrifying to me as a young 20-year-old woman working for the city was that the frustration of our engineers, because they came every day with paperwork and they shared with me that here's what this paperwork means, Lucy. We have Riley Chemical that is pumping all of this into our city water. It's $300,000 per day in direct cost for the wastewater treatment plant to clean up the water enough that it can go back in and become potable for the people to drink. But the amount of the fine was $25,000 per day. There was a financial incentive to pollute. Now, in a libertarian world, trespass is not allowed. So if a company puts $300,000 worth of chemicals or even $1 worth of chemicals, then everyone that is economically harmed by that, or physically harmed, you've got criminal versus civil, but let's just go for the economic and civil, you would have to not only remediate, but also compensate. So in a libertarian world, zero offense is allowed towards the other person, zero economic harm. But in our current system, the politicians negotiate with the polluters in order to decide how much we can be polluted. And it's just tragic. I mean, just watch Aaron Brockovich and see the horror. So I'll shut up now.
No, that was a very good point. And I started a sewer utility from scratch. So I sat in front of the IURC and convinced them that I could run this poop plant and all that good stuff.
What'd you do with all the poop?
I built a plant. I built a
You're
plant and
foolproof.
operated it, and I filled out all the MORs and all that good stuff, and it was beautiful fun.
Was poop profitable? I'm very curious.
Well, it can be if you're a big enough utility, but just the whole system has become so bogged down, and you could even relate this back to the windmill and just government overreach on how things are done. A lot of it doesn't make sense. It's a lot of people that are protecting their position, their job, their whatever. And I mean, I sat in front of the RERC for, I don't know, certain hours with my accountant and my attorney. And I was like, oh, this is so much fun paying all these people to talk about me. So
right.
We got it done. I talked people into letting me run poop lines through their property and getting easements and all that stuff. So it was valuable experience. But just whenever you get the government involved in any of this stuff, the free market works so much better because if you don't perform, you don't get paid. A lot of these people, they get paid no matter what. And they get paid if it's even harder. If they put more obstacles in your way, they can charge you more to do this. So, you got to wonder, well, I guess I'm going to ask the question, what do we do to combat? How do we get people educated and upset enough that we can get somebody to do something, to get people aware?
Well, I think the biggest thing, as I mentioned before, is education, because most people don't even really realize this stuff is going on. I think, one thing that I've been trying to do, like with my group that I run here up in Lake County, the Patriots Alliance up in Lake County, is I'm trying to teach people to be more educated on their local government so they can catch things like this. Because I know myself, like maybe over a year ago, I wasn't really paying much attention at all to local Indiana politics. I mean, I was just kind of, just paying attention to the national stuff, what's going on with Trump, what's going on with Biden, whatever, I didn't really care about what was going on in Indiana because I didn't really realize how deeply it affects me. Now, as I started kind of combing through some of these bills that the General Assembly looks at, either this session or last session or whatever, I realized how much more of a direct impact that has on me as a Hoosier than what's going on in Washington, D.C. So I think that's the main thing, is people need to be looking at each bill that comes through and holding their representatives accountable if they're not very happy with the bill, and, replacing them, primarying them, electing somebody else, all that jazz. And the other thing is too, people need to realize that what politicians and political activists tell you is 90% of the time not what's actually going on. Like when they're sitting there telling you that this clean energy is for you, it's not for you, it's really for the corporations. When they're sitting there and telling you a progressive income tax is to punish the top 1%, it's not to punish the top 1%. It really penalizes the middle class and upper middle class much more than them. So, and this could be said with many different arguments. So I think the main purpose of what people need to do is peel back the onion, think for yourself, educate yourself, and when you're not happy with something, just pound on your rep's door until they listen to you. And if they still don't want to listen to you after that, you go and primary them.
Smart.
Yeah, well, and I don't know how else to get people involved. But if just this bill 1381 is a perfect example of a bunch of gobbledygook that I'm like, just English, man, English. I'm just a poor common folk here. I don't know all these big words you used. So, maybe that makes them feel smart, or it just makes me feel dumb. I don't know which that is. Probably a little both. So Lucy, what do you think? How do we combat this? What do we do?
Oh my gosh! Don't ask the libertarian gun nut. We've got the ballot box, we've got the cartridge box. I really don't want to use the cartridge box, but I want you to think about the very real harm that is coming to people. So when you think about what was happening to the children in the Aaron Brockovich situation, where they've got, this, I think it was like cesium-6, it's going into the water. I mean, what if there had been like actual knowledge by those parents about what was going on in real time? They could have marched their way in and dragged those corporate officers out. And there could have been a real human consequence. One of the biggest problems with corporations as persons is the fact that you don't have an individual human being who's being held accountable, whose liberty can be taken away by throwing their butts in jail, and making them accountable for the death that they're actually causing. So there's this economic death we've been experiencing, and then there's the very real physical death that can be caused by these environmental harms. So again, it comes back to, the libertarian idea of with trespassing laws strictly enforced, you wouldn't be able to have the EPA or any other entity enshrine the amount of harm they're allowed to cause. I want to segue just a little bit because this comes into that broader problem of, the state, Indianapolis, for example, or in the federal level, Washington, D.C., negotiating their own sweetheart deals in the back room and then preemptively removing the right to seek redress. As an example, a friend of mine lives down in Bates Hendricks, and she was really surprised one day to see some people out working in the easement. They're putting on this suitcase size, box on a new telephone or new utility pole. What was it? It was a 5G repeater. And very shortly after that, predictably 15 feet off of her house, she starts to get headaches. She's not sleeping as well. She's wondering if it's related to, the frequencies coming out of the box. But as she started to investigate, what she discovered is that 2 years prior to the installation, there were laws passed that preempted her from even being able to protest or seek any sort of cessation of the installation of these 5G repeaters. And of course, there's very little data to prove that those are safe for humans. So we are the experiment once again. So again, you've got to be able to look these people in the eye that are actually causing this harm for you. They've got to be accountable. And I love Jacob's idea of primarying them, which of course is a very Republican and Democrat thing, since the libertarians don't have primaries. But I suspect that we soon will. And I suspect that because based on the results of our last governor's race, when Don Rainwater got 11.4% of the vote in a three-way race, we ended up second, the Libertarian Party with Don at the helm. The governor's race, he won in 34 out of 92 Indiana counties. So the Republicans are running scared because now the Libertarians in a third of Indiana came in second. We beat the Democrats. And I hope the Republicans are shaking in their boots at the idea of a libertarian coming in and stopping this sort of fraudulent nonsense.
Well, I think at the very least it should make them think about what they're doing. It just seems like they're disconnected with the people. Now, Jacob, as a Republican, are you going to take that from that libertarian?
Well, once again, obviously I'm a registered Republican. I vote Republican. I generally would support Republican candidates. But at the same time, I will say that there's a lot of Indiana Republicans I don't think represent Republican values. And I think that's the reason why a lot of registered Republicans went and voted for Don Rainwater, as Lucy was saying, because I think a lot of people felt that Don Rainwater emphasized more conservative issues than the supposedly conservative Republican governor, Eric Holcomb. So, I think that really there needs to be some accountability for our politicians. And I really think that a lot of these Republicans, they get out there during election season and they just tell you, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And then they get down to Indianapolis and they really don't do much of anything. And they don't even try to have accountability with you. Like, for example, if they have a meeting with their constituents, they'll have it at 10 o'clock in the morning over Zoom on a Wednesday afternoon or on a Wednesday morning when everybody's at work. Now, luckily, I'm self-employed and I'm also going to school. So I got kind of a crazy schedule. So I can attend those kind of things. So I did. And then they find other ways, like when I was attending it with one rep that I've been watching in my area. What she simply did is she just had you type in the questions. You couldn't even, speak out over the Zoom and just shout something out. You had to go, type it in and then have a screener read it to her and then she answers you and then you can't do a follow-up to it. So the biggest thing is these people need to have accountability, whether that's voting for a Republican or a Democrat or Libertarian or whatever. You need to hold your reps accountable. And in my opinion, the best way to do that is to go and if you're living in a Republican district, is go and primary your Republican representative and replace them with a better, more principled Republican. If you're living in a Democrat district, to run a conservative Republican or possibly even run a Libertarian that represents, your conservative values if you feel they better do, like a lot of Republicans did with Donald Rainwater versus Eric Holcomb. So that's my solution, I would say, is just get involved, hold your reps accountable. And if they still don't want to listen to your voice, then you tell them, hey, you work for We the People and We the People are terminating your employment.
Well, and I think that, it goes back to the disconnection of getting out with your constituents. Now, my representative won't speak to me. Now, of course, I ran against him the thing, but I got 2 videos of him refusing even to acknowledge my existence. And again, he worries about farm bills and windmills. And there is, I have a garden here in my house, but it's not really what's going on with his constituents. And I just think that, they just get disconnected with what they're supposed to be doing. And you know what? I got a hats off to Adam Harvey for saying this topic. He's been pushing this windmill topic for like 3 weeks. Yeah. Oh, I'm telling you what, Lucy, your husband's getting ready to be banned from the show. The checkbook thing was funny. I laughed at that one. Yeah. I love this guy. We may have to have him out as a guest, and then the viewers can make fun of him while he's on here.
Well, I'll tell you what. After 30 years, he still makes me laugh every day. Sometimes I'm laughing at him. Sometimes I'm laughing with him. But he always manages to say those things that I don't think about till 2 days later. I'm like, oh. Yeah, he gets that right.
I'd never want to take myself so seriously that I'm too serious. So, but let's do a little housekeeping here. It's been a good show. We're actually interviewing for a lefty. We need to find the right lefty, so we will have a tryout, a guy trying out next week. And our topic is going to be education. Let me throw this up here. We're going to have a guest. Where is it? Okay, next week, Jennifer McWilliams. We're going to talk about education, and she's with Purple for Parents. And if anybody knows somebody from Red for Ed that would love to come on, I haven't had a whole lot of luck getting them to even stick their head out of the turtle shell. So I would love to have the opposite opinion for us to do, but we're going to try 3 people on here. So we have we're going to call Lucy the center just for the sake of being in the center, and so we have right, left, center. So wow, it'll all be balanced, and I'll be the referee. And that's going to be next week. And Jennifer's been on the show before, and that was a pretty spirited show. And then also I'm going to put up here, there's a group on Facebook at the bottom of the thing there. It's People Over Politics. And I do polls on there, and just ask to join that group. We do polls. It's another place where we can have civil discussion about politics. And also, if you want to suggest a topic, that'd be a good place to do it on there. And then also, we have a YouTube channel, which we have 5 subscribers. I would love to get 6 subscribers by the end of the week. So if we could get that done, that would be awesome. And we're also on Rumble. So you can go on there and watch any of the shows. I post those after the broadcast, but we really do appreciate our live viewers asking questions. It feels like we're sort of all in this thing together, and it's just a good deal. So do we have, hold on, we still got a couple comments here. Let's see if there's anyone. Somebody's Amber. Okay, yeah, they're I think they're missing a lefty on here. So we got a couple interesting folks coming up. And if you have a suggestion, message us on our Gmail. It's mouthwash@gmail.com. Wow, look at that. I think it's Mouthwash Talk Show on gmail.com. Do that. And our topic next week is going to be education. So that's going to be wide open. And we'll see if we can get Thomas to go out and do some peeps on the streets. And we'll get ready for that to go. And we'll have 3 people on and ready to go. So I'll let Jacob have a word. And Lucy, I'm going to make probably a mistake here and let you have the last word. And then we're going to.
Well, I mean, I would say this is a very good spirited discussion, kind of an issue that a lot of people might not think is something you could really throw a lot of life into, energy policy. I think we did a pretty decent job, having some fun with it. And I really enjoyed talking with you guys as always. And I'm really much looking forward to the education topic next week, since I am a former homeschooler and I'm very passionate about the subject. So I am definitely looking forward to it. Definitely looking forward to seeing Jennifer again. Had a good discussion with her last time she was on, and I will see you guys again next week. I'm looking forward to it.
Perfect. Ditto. Hey, John, want to thank you for always doing a great job. Jacob, the reasoning, the rationality that you bring to the discussion and the lack of drama and emotion, really super appreciated. I know I get super passionate and start, doing things like this. But, I think what we need to leave this with is the idea of power to the people, and to remember that the individual is the basic the basic unit of human society. Unless we protect the rights of the very smallest and and the individual itself, you can't protect the rights of people in group. So the canard is doing anything for the greater good. And that's what I want to leave you with, is the supremacy of the individual and individual human rights.
All right. Well, hey, you guys made Windmills sound interesting. So, the title of the show was "The Answer, My Friend, is Blowing in the Windmill." So that was very, very good. I was thinking we might have to pull out our emergency topic, which someday we may get to it, and then you'll laugh because of what it is. But so just keep you guessing on that. So until next week, we all say peace out, and join us next week and get on that People Over Politics. Subscribe to our channel, all that beautiful stuff. Peace out.